You're all very welcome to this webinar. First, I will talk a little bit about the different graduate programs that we offer, and then kind of why choose the School of Sociology in UCD, and talk a little bit about the modules that we offer. And then my colleague David, who's the program director of the Social Data Science, will talk more about social data science specifically. And we also have our colleague Pablo, who is, if you have any specific questions and you want to know from one of the academics, he's a good person to ask questions. And then, of course, Adriana, who's kindly agreed to join us, who's a current student as well with us. So first of all, we have 5 different graduate programs, and I'll briefly talk about them. But if you have any questions about specific ones, don't hesitate, because I know sometimes it can be a little bit probably confusing what's exactly the difference between them. So firstly, we have 2 what are more general graduate programs, so the MSc in Sociology and MA in Sociology. And the main difference between them is in the core modules that you take. So with the MSc, you take a module in statistics. In MA Sociology, you take a module in qualitative research. And that's kind of, in terms of the research approach, that's the main difference. Then the optional modules are the same, so you can kind of tailor and choose the modules that you like. And really, all of our graduate programs aim to empower you to use analytical research, sociological skills, apply rigorous methodology to address various societal issues that are particularly relevant in contemporary society. So anything from environment, migration, gender inequality, AI, nationalism, national identity. There's a wide variety of topics that these programs would explore in greater detail. And then we have 3 more specific masters, which perhaps are more tailored at if you're interested in a particular specific kind of area of sociology. So the first one there, MSc in Sustainable Societies, this is a new master's which we're launching in September 2026. And it follows really from the masters that we have in global solutions that Adriana is currently on. So sustainable societies will have a strong focus on sustainability and social dimensions of sustainability in terms of the environment, but also other topics as well, such as gender, inequalities, health, and policy as well. MSc Social Data Science, it's a very unique program, particularly in the Irish context, and David will talk more about that later, but basically it's a computational social science postgraduate module, which is very successful. And then we have the MSc in Comparative Social Change, and this is a joint program with Trinity College Dublin. In Comparative Social Change, you're looking at various social changes that have occurred in Ireland, but applying them in a global context. So there's a lot of comparative between Ireland and other European contexts, as well as Ireland and the kind of the global south. And you will take some of the modules here with us in UCD, and then some of the modules in Trinity. So that's kind of the main, I suppose, difference between those programs. Just go on to the next slide. So this is just to show you, if you want to find out more information about each of these programs, if you go to our website at ucd.ie sociology and go to graduate programs, you'll be able to look at each individual different program and look at the type of modules you can take, the type of what you're likely to learn, and so on. So it's a useful resource just in case it's hard to find the information. And then I suppose, why study in the school in sociology? So why should you choose to study with us and not with someone else? Well, first of all, sociology in UCD is the largest sociology department in Ireland. It's one of the top ranked centres for sociological research. We have really diverse staff who have really diverse research interests and therefore teaching interests. So we have people working on migration, inequalities, nationalism, crime, AI, computational social science, gender, health, environment, social theory, socio-political sociology. So really quite diverse in terms of the kind of the teaching and the research that we offer in the school. And this is often reflected in the teaching. So a lot of the teaching is research led. So a lot of the our colleagues would, for example, often would use research led teaching. And a lot of colleagues as well have been recognised within the university and more widely as in terms of their teaching, strong teaching portfolios. And it really allows you to develop your own interests. So as I mentioned earlier, in all the different programs that we offer, there are some slight differences in the core modules that you have to take, but then the optional modules really allow you to tailor, I suppose, to tailor it to your own interest. So you're really able to explore whatever you're interested in, whether that would be migration or environment or inequalities or computational social science. You can take a wide variety of optional modules. And I think this is really quite a strength of our school, because sometimes when you're starting off a master's, you might think you're interested in one subject, but you might actually discover during the program that you have an interest in something else that you maybe haven't had a chance to explore in your previous studies. Um, and we very much focus on so kind of making sure that you have a good grounding in key sociological theoretical frameworks, sociological works, but also strong methodological approaches which you'll apply then in your dissertations, which are really particularly valued in the labour market, which I'll talk on a little bit now. So these are some of the career outcomes where our postgraduate students have gone into. So research would be a big area where our students go. So whether that's working in a research institute or more of a policy institute, but very much focusing on research, media, journalism, and public relations. And a lot of our graduates would work for various non-governmental organizations or humanitarian organizations, I suppose, because perhaps they're particularly attracted to some of the modules which explore those topics. A lot of postgraduate students would go on to work in academia or pursue further studies, so particularly go on to pursue PhD. Uh, a lot of students as well work in the public or civil sector. So that's whether here in Ireland or it could be internationally. So, for example, within the EU or the UN. Data analysts as well, particularly from the computational social science. And that's in terms of career outcomes, I think that's one of the strengths from computational social science is that it enables students to apply data analytics, but to social issues, which is a really valued skill in the current labour market. Students have also gone into consulting and health services. And again, if you have any specific questions, I'm very happy to talk about these in more detail. Um, these are just some of the modules that are offered. So all students will do a dissertation. There's a variety of research methods modules, so research design, qualitative research, various different modules to help you to develop further develop your research skills. And then you've got various optional modules. So, for example, social and political thought. There's a module on the environment, migration, social networks, um, challenges in the global south, AI in society, inequalities, and various kind of modules that touch on different, I suppose, societal issues or different aspects of societal issues that we might be interested as sociologists to explore. And again, if you go to the website, you for each of the programs, you will see the list of the modules which are core and then which are the optional modules. But majority of modules for most of our programs will be optional. And these are some of the testimonials we have. You'll hear from Adriana, but these are from previous students. And I suppose what particularly students, our student Emer, who studied MA in sociology, particularly found that she got not only the academic knowledge, but also practical hands-on experience, which is often, again, what's really valuable in the labour market. Students are generally quite complimentary about the option of modules that they have, which allow them to explore something that they're particularly interested in. So, for example, in the case of Emer, it was migration, but it could be any topic that you're particularly interested in. And this is another testimonial from another student, Tiffany, who particularly liked the small size of the courses. And I suppose that's kind of important to mention. Our classes are very small in the master, so it allows for in-depth discussion, a lot of group work, and the lecturers get to know the students really well because the class sizes are small. So I think that's another kind of strength as well of the school. Just going to check the chat for some questions. Well, thank you, Emma, for sharing the contact details. That's really helpful. If no one has any specific questions about what we've just covered, then I'll pass it on to my colleague, my colleague David, who will talk to you about social data analytics.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the social data science program. The idea of this program is twofold. we first, or we try to use these different computational methods and tools to kind of answer or explore traditional problems in social science, but also some new problems that are emerging because of the digitalization of society, but also to understand like these different changes, not necessarily from the data perspective, but from the most social science perspective. And I'll give you a brief example to understand this like twofold options that you have with the social data science program. So when you think about the internet that has heavily modified the way we live, this is not a random thing. Like you can see the opt project. This is a snapshot of the internet. So if you see the connections there, all these clusters are websites, and those are determined by our interests, by the place we live, by the things we do. And a lot of interesting things are happening with that. For example, if you see this, like you probably are all familiar with Chadwick Boseman. What's interesting, or there are a few things that are interesting about this. The first is if you see there's a timestamp there, so a lot of the things that we're doing are being recorded without us doing much. So you don't have to, for example, sign a letter and say like, oh, this is what I'm doing this. Here it's already there, and you don't have to do anything about it. And we can track this when people are posting, where they're posting. But this one is also interesting because this, for some reason, is the most liked tweet ever. And if you think about it, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to like something online? Why is this the most liked tweet ever? But it's also interesting because if you see the check mark in blue, what does that mean? Like there is a trust issue there. So yeah, this is really him, but it's not really because it's reporting his death. Yeah. So all these things that are appearing because we have these new options online. And again, the data that is produced online, we can do things with that data that we couldn't do before. There are also a lot of different issues in terms of how this data is collected, if we have a say on that data. So when you think, for example, about COVID, there were some things or two things there that were very important. The first one is mobility data that was basically collected from your phones and the GPS feature, which is very basic feature that most mobile phones had. But we also had these contact tracing apps where you could say like, oh, I travel and this is the people that I interacted with. And then they can say like, well, you interacted with this person and this person tested positive. But there is an issue there beyond all the technical aspects of being able to deal with this data. When you think about it, and if you see on the right, like we have the entire population. The first issue with using this digital data is that first, not everyone has a mobile phone. And then people that have a mobile phone is not always a smartphone. And then not all people with smartphones will have the app. So one of the issues there is like, sure, you need all the skills to be able to manage and like operate with this data, but you also need to make these questions in terms like, who is this data from? Like, is this data accurate? Is it biased? And we can see that everywhere. And especially with artificial intelligence, for example, we have all discussion about bias, about trust, but that pretty much happens with all the social data that we had before. So always with these methods is the question of how we develop competence with these tools, but also what are the important social questions that we have to make when analyzing or when using this data. So in the program, basically, you have four core modules that are related to different computational methods like social networks and social simulation. We also have a more critical and theoretical discussion on AI and society. And then this module on research design, where you basically go through and plan your dissertation. And then option modules, the program is nice in the sense that you can tailor to different interests and levels of competence in technical methods. So you have modules with computer programming, modules with mathematics, with information science, with social science, and you can pretty much choose whatever you think is best for whatever professional goals you have. The idea, or we cater initially to two large group of people. The first one is students with a background in social science, art and humanities, business, psychology, the so-called like soft disciplines, and they want to develop a technical skill in data science. So like knowing more about these computational methods. The other group is people that already have this technical knowledge or some of this technical knowledge and want to know more about social science. So the important thing here is like if you are someone already with technical knowledge and you want to further this technical knowledge, this is not necessarily the program for you. Like you might be better off doing computer science or engineering or mathematics. Here, so this is still a program in the social sciences, and that's a key aspect. Like, sure, we can develop all this expertise in technical skills and methods, but the social science part is core still there. So why is this a good option for your master's study? The first one is that it's offered by the School of Sociology, and as I Egli said, we have a very diverse competence. So you'll be able to approach a lot of different topics in the social sciences through these computational methods. The second is that we have these research strengths in computational social science at the school level, at the college level, and the university level. So a lot of people here are working with these computational methods in social science. Then we have this very wide technology and innovation ecosystem that is naturally like very useful for people interested in this topic, and the curriculum flexibility in terms of first the modules that you can take in computer programming, mathematics, social science, but also because you can choose either to do a dissertation for your master's or do an internship and a capstone project instead. And finally, in terms of career opportunities, so people tend to think about the like tech companies, but it's not just that. When you think about society in general, you have a lot of data intensive organizations in the private, in the public, and the third sector, related precisely with the amount of data that is being produced right now, with the multiple stakeholders that interact or produce this data, uh, the increasing interest in making decisions based on data or using data to discuss the different problems that we have in society, and naturally some of the major issues in society. So financial markets, for example, AI, a lot of that are very heavily dependent on what happens with data. And naturally, you can also have a pathway into a PhD and academia. These are some of the employers or some of our graduates have gone into this an example companies, but in general, as I mentioned, the government now, different government entities are using a lot of data, different private companies, both in tech and in some other sectors, are or need these professionals with competence, not just in the technical aspect, but also in the social science part. So thank you very much, and now I'll hand it over to Adriana, who's going to tell you a little bit more of her experience as a student this year.
Yes, thank you so much. As has been mentioned, I'm doing the Masters in Global Solutions, which next year will be called Sustainable Societies, I think. Um, I had previously done my undergraduate in a public administration, social sciences based sector, and I went straight to a master's. Because it is just 1 year, although you can also do it part-time within 2 years. And I wanted an extra profession and more going into depth with my interests because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in terms of like career and work. And I really thought the master's would sort of hone into my interests and skills and allow me to delve into and what I actually want to do. And what I found that the master's really allows you to go into whatever your interest is. There's a lot of flexibility and space for what you really want to learn and what you want to look into, which I think is a really good contrast between an undergraduate's degree where you sort of have to learn what they give you, and not so much flexibility in terms of the study. And I was looking at UCD as a university because it's one of the best in sustainable studies in Ireland, especially in Dublin. And I wanted to continue my studies in an English-speaking country in Europe. So Ireland in general, as well as a country, is a really good place to live, especially as a student. And the culture and the people are very friendly. So that is always a plus for your studies, especially moving into where you want to do career-wise. It also has inspired me to stay here as well and look for jobs here. You can also do that within the careers space in UCD that they help you link with careers after your studies, and you can still contact them 1 or 2 years after you have graduated, and they can still help you look for career opportunities, internships, graduate programs, etc. And in terms of global solutions, I really was aiming for a master's that focuses on more of a positive note, and really understanding how I can use my theoretical background in the undergraduate that I learned into a more practical way, and how actual research is done on topics that I particularly enjoy.
I just have a question for Pablo, just in terms of the further research opportunities that you see within the school, just in terms of PhD progression, and maybe you can speak just a little bit about that.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, absolutely. So there has been quite a few examples of students who did the master with us and then progressed to do PhD with us. So like I had 2 PhDs in that situation, and personally I think that's fantastic to see the progression, from someone entering the master degree and then all the way into PhD, and frankly getting better than some of us in some of these topics, which is I think the point of doing this. So we help them develop, and then we also see that together with other academics. I think that's really special journey. And then people end up in different types of employment. Some are in business, others are also in different universities doing postdocs, so some of them may try to become professors themselves. So I think that is, from our point of view, it's a really rewarding experience, because you see the trajectory from an early, let's say, stage all the way to someone who is like a colleague later on. And I think that is something that Davi Egle would, have examples of themselves as well in the same program or in different ones. So, but then, of course, other people say, no, I finished my master, and that's, already opening doors to other opportunities. So the PhD is an option with us or with someone else, but sometimes the master is already quite a journey, I would say.
Question then for Agle, just in terms of the access that graduate students have to your school seminars and talks, maybe you can just give a sense of what's available to current and prospective students.
Sure, absolutely. So all our master students will be invited to research seminars that we host in the school. So we'd have several seminars throughout each of the semesters, and they generally are invited guest speakers from other universities talking about a variety of topics. So all our students would have access to that. And then any kind of school social events that would be organized as well would also be open to our postgraduate students. There's very nice, vibrant, I would say, postgraduate culture that we have in the school, with our PhD students, but also with the master students. And we do try to involve them as much as possible in any school activities. But absolutely, I think research seminars is another really great way to sort of kind of focus more on your interest. So often the topics are quite diverse, and for anyone who's, let's say, interested in that specific topic, it can really be a great way to kind of explore something in more detail in that kind of academic setting. And then, of course, in UCD itself as well. So there'd be a lot of schools that are quite close to sociology. So, for example, political science, social policy, that also would host seminars. We also have the Geary Institute, which is more policy-focused research. So you'd be invited to all of those seminars as well, which sometimes can be very nice interdisciplinary kind of research areas.
David, I might put this question to you, just as questions has come in the Q&A. Certainly in all courses there are core modules that all students have to take, but are there opportunities for students to take modules outside the School of Sociology throughout their graduate studies? Oh, you're just on mute there, sorry.
Yeah. So if you go online and you see the list of core and option modules, that list of options are the possible modules that you can take. An option that you have available is to audit modules. So there is kind of like a formal process at UCD. You talk to the module coordinator and you tell them, can I attend your module? And they agree, you go, you do the assignments, it'll be in your certificate, like it will show that you attended that module. But yeah, no, basically you have the core and option modules, and only the option modules you can take for credit.
Okay, that's clear. And Adriana, just we're coming to the end of the session, but in terms of your cohort or the School of Sociology, can you give us a flavour of some of the students, where they're from in your particular or in the School of Sociology that you are networking with across the programs?
Yeah, everyone is really from everywhere. Irish students don't really dominate any class, and especially because classes are small. I think my biggest class is 20 people. There are really a lot of people from very international places, whether it's from Asia or um, America or Canada or in Europe. It's really diverse, and it's really interesting because when we're talking about these sort of topics, it's good to know different types of perspectives, and that really helps with conversation during class.
So yes, I suppose why final word, final pitch, why study with us? So it's a really great, vibrant school. We have really diverse staff who teach and research in a wide variety of areas. As Pablo mentioned, I think even the master's itself is a journey and would open up so many doors for you in terms of career options. It is the largest department in Ireland in terms of sociology, in social sciences, and one of the leading ones. Our graduates do really well in the labour market. But it also opens up opportunities to work and to continue pursuing your academic interest if you do want to pursue a PhD, as Pablo said, either with us or with someone else. So it is a really great, I think, stepping stone for you in your whatever career options you might want to pursue. And it really allows you to explore, I think, a lot of societal issues using that your sociological imagination, your kind of strong theoretical foundations, but also really strong methodological empirical research skills as well.